Great stuff. I will kick off. So, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. As I just mentioned there, we're looking at how to utilize Service Hub for your college. It is targeted towards colleges, but this is really for all sorts of education organisations. So, the host today, we have myself. We also have Amy, who will be manning the chat whilst I waffle on for the next hour or so. So, great. Without further ado, we'll jump in. Yeah, as I said, how to utilize Service Hub for your college with myself. Let's take a look at what we will be running through today. So today's agenda, as it says on the tin, we're looking at all things Service Hub. So tickets, that's the core, the backbone of Service Hub. Then we'll be looking at a range of specific Service Hub features such as knowledge base, chat flows, so on and so forth. We'll touch on reporting as well, although that obviously spans across a range of different hubs in HubSpot. There are some service specific reporting that we'll take a little look at. So let's jump in. Kick it off talking about tickets. So tickets, like I sort of said, they're at the core of Service Hub. They really are the backbone of Service Hub, and they link to lots of different Service Hub features. So they have, links to some of the features that we'll look at in some later slides, and they sort of help power those tools a little bit. Like I put there, offers a great use case for colleges. For anyone who isn't sort of aware of what tickets are, the purpose is a support ticketing system. So if you've ever, I don't know, maybe you've used HubSpot support. If you're a HubSpot user, you might submit a ticket. They'll get back to you in a few days through email. That's literally what it is. It's a support ticketing system. You may not normally call it that in the education space. You'd probably more likely just call it customer service. But these tools, tickets, as well as all of the others we'll be looking at, have a brilliant use case for managing all the different types of support requests you get incoming, whether it's just one-off questions or more in-depth, queries that need to be taken offline and researched in order to get back to the prospective student. So like I put here, for the likes of colleges, this enables teams to manage incoming queries in a structured manner. The idea being, maybe right now you're not using tickets or anything of these, any of these Service Hub features. It probably all just comes into an email, which I'm sure if anyone's had experience with it, emails get lost, you might forget to reply, you don't know what's assigned to who, it can be a bit of a mess. So the idea for tickets is to try and make that easier, essentially. So this is sort of what tickets looks like in HubSpot. Granted, there's some small screenshots, but we can see at the top here, these are the statuses of the tickets that they can be moved along. So I've just set up an example ticket here, what it might look like. You have a few ticket properties displayed on the front if you want. So right now I've got owner, where you might have multiple people working and sort of managing these different tickets. 1 second, there we go. And as you work through these, you can move them from new to in progress, waiting on contact, waiting on us, and then finally closed. So the idea being, this is where you would spend a lot of your time. There is actually somewhere else that's quite new that you'll end up spending a lot of your time if you work on the customer service side, but we'll get to that later on. And this is how you can manage all of the incoming queries and tickets. If you use HubSpot, you'll be aware of filters and views that very much exist on tickets. So you can have a view for just tickets where you're ticket owner, or just tickets that have been open for X amount of time and are high priority. Any of these sort of mix match of filtering you can do and then save them as a view. So it's really easy for you to work through the sort of higher priority ones and the lower priority ones. These tickets can be created manually by yourself. Maybe it's a phone conversation, you want to create a ticket off the back of it. Equally, they can be created from a number of different areas. So I put here like a support form or email sent to a support email. You can set this up in HubSpot so it automatically creates the ticket for you. The idea with tickets is not to duplicate work. It's not that you need to respond to emails and manage a ticket. The idea is that it all sort of groups into one. So it's not to make more work, it's to make things easier and sort of track it all better. So down here, I've sort of outlined a couple of automation features that you can implement in HubSpot. So in terms of ticket creation, that can be automated if they're going through certain support channels. You can also have automations that update the status of the ticket based on the responses. So 2 checkboxes here to move it to these 2 relevant stages based on who's responded. So again, it's not like you need to respond, go and move the ticket. That is all up to date. This is making your lives easier, sort of thing. So hopefully that makes sense. You can access this just in the settings page of tickets. Really easy and quick thing to implement. It makes tickets a lot smoother to use if you are currently using them. So why are tickets great for colleges? The big one at the top there is to never lose track of incoming queries again. Like I said, this is quite a big one. If everything's funneling through your emails, it's so easy for them to be lost unless you're like really structured with the foldering in your emails and whatnot. Otherwise, it is really easy to lose them or to not respond to someone for over a week or something like that. And obviously, that's going to have what's the word I'm trying to say? Implications on the brand of your organization. So something to be aware of. Provide a great customer experience of timely and consistent replies, obviously with it all managed, and you can then sort of divide up who tackles what ticket. Hopefully your responses will be a bit more timely. The point below I've sort of run through, you don't need to duplicate on work. This is to make your lives easier. Keep a clear track record of your queries and responses. Although you might have a historic record of all the emails that you've received over the past how many years that are support related, it's a lot easier in tickets to sort of have them and stored. You can filter down to find the specific ones. So good to have a historic record of what you've responded to. And I've put here, we will get onto reporting later down the line, but with tickets, you can report on all sorts of things. So if you are using it in tickets, it opens up the doors to all of the brilliant HubSpot reporting that we all know and love. So based on all the different ticket properties, you can now report on them, which is brilliant. And in emails, you lose all of that if that's where you're currently managing it. So this will give you reports on service response times, ticket completion times, what type of questions do you get asked the most, and that's a really important one that's then going to inform what sort of blog should we create, or all sorts of stuff. So some really useful things. If you get lots of queries from either prospective students or parents, current ones, or alumni, tickets is a really great place to manage it. Next up, we're going to jump to knowledge base. So tickets being like the core of Service Hub, essentially. We're now going to look at a range of different Service Hub features, one of which is a knowledge base. If anyone, I'm going to use HubSpot as a reference again, if anyone has ever gone on to HubSpot's knowledge base, I mean, no prizes for guessing that is a knowledge base because it's called a knowledge base. That's what it is. It's just a simple, informative selection of documents that they have, pages that you can access that are very clear cut and they answer your questions. What a knowledge base is not is a blog. They're very much two separate things. A blog a blog could be more descriptive, almost anecdotal, storytelling in a way. A knowledge base is not that in the slightest. A knowledge base is just there to answer people's questions. That's one of the key things to sort of keep in mind when creating a knowledge base. So this could be, in the context of education, an area that your prospective students and parents, or current or even alumni, can access in order to have their questions answered. The idea for this, and you might have heard self-service used, in other sort of contexts of service for organisations, it helps people self-serve themselves. I don't actually have a stat to hand, but there are all sorts of stats that I've read that people prefer to self-serve for the most part. Some people still like to get in touch and have a discussion, but for the most part, people like to do it themselves. They don't want to wait for a response from someone, or they don't want to phone up or anything like that. If they can instantly jump on themselves, get the answers with just a few clicks, that is typically what people prefer. So this is the gap that a knowledge base can fill. So I've put that they're great for two key reasons. Reduce stress/reliance on live customer support agents. Having this will reduce the amount of incoming queries that you have. So that can be a big bonus. If you maybe don't have the budget to employ loads and loads of people to sort of man all the queries that you get coming in, this can be a lower budget option to sort of reduce that stress on the few team members you might have. And finally, improve the customer experience for your prospective students. People will like that. The fact that they can go on and get the information really easily, that's going to reflect well on your brand, rather than someone having to phone up, get passed over to a different department, be held on hold, all of these sorts of things. This is favorable for your brand. So let's take a look at what one could look like. Granted, this isn't the most fancy one, but like I was saying, they're not sort of intended to be fancy or flashy or anything like that. They're intended to get the job done and to answer people's questions. So this is what you might see. Like I said, if you've been on HubSpot's knowledge base, it'll look somewhat similar. I've put here that you might have experienced this yourself in the past when going through any high value purchase. Typically, lower value purchases might not have such in-depth knowledge bases. For the likes of HubSpot, obviously, that's a big value purchase. They're going to have loads of documentation. And for the likes of a student deciding whether they want to go to college, that is a massively high value purchase. You know, that's the next few years of their life. So that's a really big thing that they'll want to research and have their questions answered for. And like I've put there at the bottom, knowledge bases shouldn't be flashy. They should be easy to use and provide clear-cut information. So why a knowledge base is great. Hopefully I've sort of covered quite a few reasons just then as to why knowledge bases are great. The top one, they allow prospective students and parents, whoever it may be, to self-serve themselves. Granted, setting up a knowledge base will take a lot of time, but it's one of those things that putting the work in can reap the rewards in the long term. And it is something that needs to be managed as well. So I would definitely recommend assigning someone internally to manage the knowledge base and keep it up to date as things change. Reduce the amount of incoming queries in order to relieve stress on your customer service team. So sort of similar to the ticketing side of things that I spoke about. Reduce the number of incoming tickets means more time available for your customer service team to spend on tougher queries that cannot be answered by a knowledge base. That is quite an important one. A knowledge base is obviously answering questions that can be answered. You already know the answer to them. There are obviously going to be questions that require a bit more digging and figuring out and discussing amongst teams and that sort of stuff, which just means if you have a knowledge base, your team can spend the time on the trickier questions. And once you've got those figured out, create a knowledge base article for it, and it's sort of it's an ever-growing thing. And finally here, I've put you can link your knowledge base to your chatbot so that the chatbot can pull answers from knowledge base articles. We're going to look at chatbots shortly. It might even be next if I remember right. It's another great way of self-service essentially. So a chatbot can be linked to live chat. It can be a series of automated messages. You can also link them up to your knowledge base. So someone types in a question, they get their answer straight away. It's essentially another route of entry to the knowledge base as opposed to them going out of their way to find the knowledge base. So I think knowledge bases are great. If you're going to get Service Hub, and I've seen people in the past, they get Service Hub and they just use tickets, or maybe they just use tickets and feedback surveys. I would highly recommend, if you're going to get Service Hub, to use the full suite of tools. A knowledge base is a brilliant tool, and I would absolutely recommend using it if you are going to sort of consider Service Hub. Cool, I was right. Chat flows is next. So let's talk about chat flows. Again, it's another sort of feature of Service Hub. They cover a few areas. So those being automated chatbots and live chat. There's a few other pieces that sort of fall into that, but those are the main sections, I would say. An automated chatbot can be a great source of lead capture. From my experience, I wouldn't say, it depends from organization to organization. I wouldn't say you're going to get absolutely loads and loads of leads from chat flows. So I would maybe, I'd look at it as a source of lead capture. One of the big ones is for the service side of things, which does involve lead capture because you can capture the details. But the majority of people would submit an inquiry form really for the likes of education. It can also help prospects self-serve, so like we've been speaking about, as well as relieving team members of having to respond to every message. So that's another one. I'm sure people who don't have any of these things in place right now and are just using emails are thinking this could cut a lot of time out of their day, just spent replying to simple questions. Live chat, on the other hand, can provide a simple way for your prospects to get in touch with you. So I know we spoke earlier about if someone wants to get in touch, what you really don't want is for them to have to ring up, be kept on hold, be passed over to a different department, be kept on hold, and so on and so forth. I'm sure anyone who's been through that has not enjoyed it. I know I've never enjoyed when that's happened to me. The idea that someone can just direct message you essentially through your website to get a response immediately is brilliant. And I've put that as a result, it'll improve the perception of your brand. So a few different pieces that fall into this. I realize I've just talked through quite a lot there, but we're going to look at the automated side first. So here, hopefully people can see this sort of flow of a chatbot. It's a really simple one. This is just sort of the pre-created one that HubSpot will create for you. But I just want to give an insight for anyone who might have not seen it before into what this does and what it looks like essentially. So up here at the top, we can send a welcome message. So when they click open the little chat window, what do you want it to say? So we can say, have you got any questions? I'm here to help. You've also got the choice of a message to send following that welcome message. Here it's just an example from HubSpot as to what you could say. So, hi there, how can I help you today? That's a valid question. You can take this a step further, and on the next slide, we're going to look at how you can sort of really improve these. But for the core functionality, we'll keep going. There is an action to get email. So this is where you would ask a question. They would respond. Obviously, in this case, it's what is your email? They would respond with their email, and then you can save that into the CRM. That's a really key and important piece of information. That's the lead capture essentially. Once we've got their email, they're in the system as a contact. Granted, you're probably going to want to ask for their first name and their last name too, and there's likely going to be a few more questions you might want to ask, but we'll look at that on the next slide. But just in its simplest format, this is brilliant. We can capture someone's email straight from them asking a question on the website. We can have them existing as a contact in HubSpot, which opens up the doors to all the other brilliant things that HubSpot can do. And just beneath here, there is then an option to configure a ticket. So like we spoke about when we looked at tickets, you can manually create tickets. People can also have a form that creates tickets. Chatbots is just another way that you can create tickets. So another route of entry into having that ticket in that pipeline where it can be managed by your team. As you can see here, you can set the name of it, the pipeline, the status, description, and the priority. The one of note, I would say, is the pipeline. I might not have mentioned this when we're on tickets, but you can have multiple pipelines for tickets. So if there's different inquiries of support, where different teams would manage them, you could separate them out into different pipelines. Maybe they have different stages in terms of how you manage them, in which case you might want to separate the pipelines. So that's really useful. You can send them to a pipeline, and what you can do in chatbots is branching. Anyone who's used workflows in HubSpot might already have a sort of idea of this. When I say branching, I mean you could ask a question with two responses. You give them two options. If they select option X, they are then taken to this, whereas if they select option Y, they are then taken to this. So that's where we could say, what intake are you inquiring for? And then we'll send them to a different department dependent on that, or what course are you inquiring about? And finally, down at the bottom, we have tickets submitted. So they will then respond in the chatbot automatically saying we will reply back to you on this email as soon as possible. Thank you. And I mean, you can customize that, say whatever you like. If you've got an SLA, for example, like we always respond within 2 days, that might be a great place to put it. Cool. So I've talked about how we can take this a little bit further, and that is sort of linked to what I mentioned around the getting information and the branching. So if I just jump over to this next page, this is what makes the chatbots really useful, in my opinion, is that their responses aren't just going into the ether, never to be seen again, maybe some sort of record of it that you can't do anything with. We can save their responses to a HubSpot property. That is what makes this so brilliant. Some of the hard, if someone doesn't go through an inquiry form or they don't apply, but they are still a lead, the hardest thing is to get their information, is to know what they're interested in, what course, what intake, all of that sort of stuff. Who are they? Are they a parent? Are they a student? That's really tough info to get if you don't go through an inquiry form or an application form or an open day form. Chatbots can be a great way to get this information, even if someone is really early on in their journey and they're just trying to get some initial information about it. It's brilliant. We can get their info, create them. We can then see if they're accessing our website and get all these great HubSpot benefits. Excuse me. So this to me is a brilliant feature of chatbots, and if you're using chatbots, I'd highly recommend using this. The other useful bit for this is that anyone who's used chatbots before might have noticed that the responses are typically free type. You can set quick replies like it has done here, of things they can choose. When you link this section up, so to create this question to get information from the contact, you can choose to link it up to a property. This has then just taken all of the field options from contact type and put them in the quick replies. So no one using this can free type. They have to select one of the options that we give them. So this, this will be like, who are you? And they can go ahead and select who they are. Based off that, we can send them down a different path. That's what makes this brilliant. If it's free type, and granted, at some point in the chatbot journey, you will want it to be free type. If it's not anything we can automatically fix through this sort of pre-thought out pathway, you do want them to be able to free type. But at the start, you really want to categorize their responses so you can send them to the right person or to the right department or to the right ticket pipeline, whatever it may be. So the fact we can do this is brilliant. It opens the doors to automation. You can imagine if it's free text, how could you ever send people down different paths from that? It'll be a guessing sort of system. They might say this, so if they do, they can go here. So this is brilliant. Anyone using chatbots, definitely explore this. Save them to HubSpot properties. Use your segmentation-based properties. Use your intake properties. Use your course properties. All of those will allow you to create really structured and defined chatbots for your audience. Before I move on, just one more thing to say on chatbots is my advice for setting these up would not be to, one morning on a Thursday be like, right, I'm just going to set a few chatbots up on the website. I'll set one up for the main web page, and I'll set one up for the admissions web page, and that'll be done. I would really sit down and plan this. Maybe a few of you get together and sort of decide on how this will work. One of the pieces I didn't mention is that you can set chatbots up per specific web pages. So not only can we define what questions we want to ask, we can say, right, well, if they're on this page, we'll ask this question. Whereas if they're on this page, we'll ask them another question. Excuse me. So for that reason alone, I would say sit down, take your time planning this out, plan out which of your key pages where you might want to have different paths and different questioning. You can then set a sort of catch-all across any other web pages to have a, just sort of a generic one that you can do. But for any of the really important pages, like the admissions pages or whatever it may be, sit down, have a think about it. What's the path you want to take? What's the information you want to capture? Who should we redirect them to? Should the people on this page go straight to live chat because it's more likely they will be a real lead for the college? Or if it's a different page, let's let the chatbot handle it. Maybe it can go to the knowledge base. This needs thinking through and planning. If you think it through and plan it well, it can be really useful. So here we can see just to sort of round up chatbots, just 2 screenshots. So this is sort of what it can look like. You can change the colors, you can change what it says. The image, if it is a bot, we would typically advise use some sort of image of a robot just so people don't think they're talking to a real person when in actual fact they're not. And over on this right-hand side, I know we've talked quite extensively there about the automated chatbots. I think that's because that's the fun bit, really. But there is live chat, and you can link up to the knowledge base, like I said earlier on. So live chat is really simple. It goes straight through to your conversations inbox or to the help desk, which we'll look at. Knowledge base, on the other hand, can allow people to self-serve. So I won't dwell on that too much because we've talked about that quite extensively, but it can essentially pull their answers from the knowledge base, or reference the question they've asked, check the knowledge base. If there is something that it matches, it can send them the info. Cool. So why are chatbots great for colleges or for any sort of education organization or any organization really? You can link your chatbots to your knowledge base to allow contacts to self-serve. We've already talked about all the benefits of self-serve. Attain key information before personally interacting with the contact. I mean, I went on about that for probably about 10 minutes, but that's what makes chatbots so great. Doesn't matter what stage they are in their journey, you can get really important information about them. Build branching criteria to ensure the contact is routed to the correct support channel. And finally, filtering contacts through a chatbot will reduce the amount of tickets your team need to respond to. Similar sort of point I've made before. That is the idea of Service Hub. It makes your lives easier to manage the tickets and to reduce the amount of tickets. Cool, let's jump on. So here we are at the help desk. This is a pretty new feature from HubSpot. Some of you might not have heard of this yet or might not have seen it yet. believe it was in a similar sort of update where they brought in the prospecting workspaces. They basically started bringing in workspaces. Um, and this is what it is. Help desk is a workspace for your services team, essentially. Previously, you would probably do most of it in tickets. You might jump to your conversations inbox. You might jump to a few different areas of HubSpot. The idea of the help desk is it gives your team one central place to work. So they don't need to jump through various tools. They can just do everything through this help desk. So you see here, I've outlined you connect chat, email, calling, WhatsApp, excuse me, Facebook Messenger, all of these different support channels, all to funnel through to this help desk. I don't think this is one to dwell on loads. It really is just a nice central location where your team can work. There is, however, one sort of additional piece that I will mention around help desk, and this is more so for the information of your team and sort of how they can work, essentially around setting goals for them. So you can set SLAs, those being service level agreements, in order to set standards for how quickly your team should be responding to and closing tickets. This in itself, I think, is useful. Ignoring these two options down here, just to set goals for your team to work towards. So, 4 hours for our first reply. That's a great goal for your team to work towards, and it sets, a great KPI that you can then report on. Gives a bit of structure to what they're doing, as opposed to a more sort of frantic, manic. I don't know, where it's going through emails. I imagine it's very hard to figure out what's high priority, low priority, how long we've been waiting. So this can set some really clear guidelines as to how your team should be working. You take it a step further, though, to apply these SLAs to properties, to ticket properties, or a combination of properties. So let's say, for example, you might want to have a quicker response time for someone who's inquiring about the current intake compared to next year's intake. It might be more tangible in terms of a lead that you can get and enroll on this year. I'm sure there'll be lots of different things. Priority is one that springs to mind. If something is lower priority, you'd set a lower SLA, whereas if it's higher priority, you'd set a higher SLA. The sort of ins and outs of this, I think you can be quite creative with, and for those watching, this will be really specific to your own organization as to what data points you want to set certain SLAs against. But really useful to do so. And like I said, even at this level, it's a great starting point. It gives structure to your team on how they should be working and when they should be responding. But of course, feel free to take it a step further based on the types of queries you get. And I mean, this wouldn't have to be something that you'd need to implement straight away in terms of this bottom section. You could put your knowledge base out there and put your chatbot out there, and over time that will build up with questions and queries. So over time, you'll get an understanding what the really important questions that we get that we need to answer quick, and what the ones that we get loads of that actually we can create a knowledge base for. So all of these things will build and develop over time. So help desk, why is it great for colleges? It offers your team one clean, easy to use and structured area to provide support. That's been a sort of consistent theme with HubSpot recently, creating these workspaces, which I think are really useful. No more jumping between lots of different tools to still deliver the same service. You can do it just in one location now. And at the bottom there, what we've just talked about, SLAs to give your team clear goals to work towards. And the part of that is to ensure that you're providing good customer service to prospective parents and students, alumni and current students. Cool. Let's jump over to the next one. Feedback surveys. This is quite a big one. So once you've implemented all of these brilliant tools that we've just talked about, of which there are quite a few, I mean, even if you're not implementing them, this is a really useful thing to use. You want to get feedback on how you're doing, on how people have found it. Essentially, have they had a good experience? Have they had a bad experience? What can you improve on? What needs to stay the same? And HubSpot offer this as a tool, so the feedback survey tool, and it includes industry standard surveying tools as well as the ability to custom create your own from scratch. So that choice is completely up to you. But at this point, we're just going to look through some of the industry standard survey tools that HubSpot provide. So here are the big three. We've got CES, which is a customer effort score. we've got CSAT, which is customer satisfaction survey, and NPS, which is net promoter score. So just going to jump in and look through these each one by one. So starting with the customer effort score, you can see a sort of example of what it could look like on the left-hand side. That's just taken from our demo portal. Essentially, as I put on the right-hand side, it reflects the amount of effort a customer had to find. It reflects the amount of effort a customer had. I'm not sure how that's worded. Essentially, how difficult was it for a customer to get the information they needed or to get their issue resolved? Was it, did they have to call up and get put on hold and get passed over and get put on hold to get a really simple answer? Or did they jump onto the knowledge base and get it immediately? Was it really hard or was it really easy? That's what it boils down to. And that's what this sort of industry standard feedback survey does. So you can see here, it can be related to a specific ticket, and you can set this up to automatically go out. So once ticket enters close one, we can automatically send out this feedback survey, get their response. Was it easy or was it difficult? So that is customer effort score. And if you're getting lots of low responses for this, lots of 1s, 2s, and 3s, I would question if you're using a knowledge base or if you need to, think of a different iteration for your chatbot or what sort of resources you have available. And outside of that, if you do have to phone up and there's not easy channels to get hold of people, or if it's taking a lot of time for you to respond, hopefully lots of the tools that we've looked at can help in pretty much every area to try and improve this metric. Cool, customer satisfaction, which is often called CSAT. You can see here, this was a really straightforward one. Was it bad? Was it okay? Was it good? And this is a measurement of their experience. So as I put there, it's a measurement used to quantify the degree to which customers are satisfied with a service or experience. I feel like CSAT is almost like a really fancy name for just the 3 smiley faces, but that's what it is. You will have seen this pop up. You've probably been sent it yourself when you've gone through a purchase. I see it pop up on certain web pages as well, like, did you have a good experience? Again, this is just going to highlight to you, and this can be related to specific queries. It's going to highlight to you, did the team do a good job in responding to them? Did your knowledge base articles have limited information on them that didn't actually answer the question? Lots of things that you can sort of help you figure out whether this area of the service is bad, whereas this area is good, sort of thing. And then finally, NPS, which is Net Promoter Score. It's a metric used to measure how likely customers are to recommend a company's services to others. So typically used to gauge customer satisfaction and loyalty to a brand. So it's a really simple 1 to 10 score, and how likely would you be to recommend our organization to other people? This one I feel like is less so around specific sort of queries that someone might have made. This is more sort of overall, further down the line, you might send this to get a more general idea as opposed to specific support channels or queries. So those are industry standard ones. HubSpot lets you custom create these as well. So if you want to take a mix match, a slightly longer form that has multiple of these questions and sort of blend them into one form to get some great feedback and then improve off the back of it, you can do. Cool. Just 3 bullet points here. I think the benefits are pretty straightforward with feedback surveys. Mainly on that top one there, they help you improve your services based on customer feedback. Without feedback, it's really hard to know what's good and what's bad. I mean, I'm sure you can have a rough idea of what you think you've done well or what you might need to improve on, but it's the opinions of the people going through that process that really matter. So that's a big one for me. It helps you improve your services based on customer feedback. Feedback is, I think, most valuable when it's constructive. It's great to hear that they had a great experience, but really you want to hear where you can improve. Receive feedback based on specific areas, so it doesn't need to be just more general. You can find out feedback maybe on the customer service agent that they spoke to, or maybe about the knowledge base as a whole, or a specific article. So lots of different areas you can get this feedback on. At the bottom there, understand how users really find your services. Feedback surveys quite often are anonymous. So people are inclined to not hold back, tell you what they really think, but that is what you really want. You want to get their honest opinions on how they found it. Cool, just a couple more tools. We've got reporting now, just got one more tool to go through, and then we'll have a bit of time for Q&A. So reporting, like I put here, the cherry on the cake. You can report all those different tools that you may have implemented or maybe wanting to implement to get an idea of how it's all going from your point of view. So a few key points I put there. You can boil this down to reporting on individuals, so individual service agents, teams, how the whole team is performing, feedback that you've received, lots of ticket data. You can look into your chatbots and if that's how many questions that's generating, all sorts of stuff. So let's jump in and take a look. I've got a few example reports here. If I show you everything that we could report on, we'd be here until next week. So I've just selected a few here to look at. Here we've got ticket volume and time to respond. So you can see the ticket volume by rep I've got here. Granted, this is in our demo account, so it's a little bit bare in terms of the data, but this could be, the 3, 4, or 5 people that work in your team. You can get an idea of how many tickets they all have individually and how many they're working on. And then you can get an average time to respond by rep. So quite often this data can go hand in hand. If you look on the left-hand side report and you see that one person has 40 tickets and the others have 10, then it will probably give more sort of insight into why that person with 40 ticket might have a longer response time or something of that sort, or an average time to, that is it, average time to respond. So a lot of these reports will go hand in hand in terms of context. But there's a nice few examples of things you can report on, which if it's all in emails, you would never get this sort of data. Here, just demonstrating really similar sort of thing for live chat. So you might have a few people manning your live chat. So we can have chat conversation totals by rep. We can also have chat conversation average first time response by rep as well. So how long is it taking people to replies? I think tickets, there's normally a bit more leeway. If you submit a ticket and wait for a response, normally a bit more leeway. A live chat, you are expecting a response within a few minutes, really. So both important, but probably different metrics that you would report against. Here we've got ticket by source and status. So if you remember, we looked at the ticket statuses. It was the likes of new, responded, waiting on response, closed, that sort of thing. So you could just have, at management level, an overall breakdown of how many tickets are in these different stages. Equally, you could then break that down by the different pipelines. If you're making properties for these tickets, you could break it down by intake or those sorts of things. So you can really dial down the reporting there. Again, the reporting is really going to rely on the data that you select and choose. So they'll need some thought going into what data points you want to capture. Once you're capturing them, you can report on them. And ticket totals by source, which is obviously going to be great. It gives you an idea of where are these support requests coming from? What are the most popular channels that people are using? Is chatbot not getting much use? Is email still getting loads? Is there a form that's getting quite a bit of use? You can get an idea of this. And off the back of that, it might highlight, is our chatbot not that easily visible? There's options in the chatbot creator to have it pop up on percentage of page scrolled or time spent on page. So it could let you think about those sorts of things, basically. What might we need to improve, make more visible, move around? Cool. I mean, like I said, it was just a sort of whistle-stop tour of a few reports, but there are loads of reports that you could look at, lots of service-based analytics, reporting on individuals, on teams, on tickets, on feedback, on chatbots, knowledge-based articles, how many reads does it get? All of that sort of stuff. I mean, when you have a knowledge base as well, we already know with HubSpot we get web page reporting. So if people are accessing web pages and what they're clicking and what they're doing, it can be nice to sort of tie your knowledge base reporting into people's customer journey. Like, what are they looking at before they get to the knowledge base? What is that the knowledge base then leading them to? So yeah, all sorts of things that you can tie this into with reporting. Anyone who's used HubSpot reporting knows it really just comes down to the data points. So if I were to run through all the data points, we really would be here for a long time. So whistle-stop tour of reporting, but there is lots of possibility for what you can create. So in terms of some benefits here, gain an understanding of your team's performance. Equally, individuals might want to create their own service-based dashboard to know how they're getting on and how many they've got in different stages. So I've highlighted for sort of management level, but great for the individuals as well. Spot any tickets that might have gone stagnant. So if this is from a management perspective, you'll be able to see all tickets in everyone's pipelines. You can also see how long a ticket has been in a certain stage. Another thing you can absolutely report on. So it gives you a nice oversight just at a glance of how these response times are going. Compare your year-on-year statistics. I don't want to keep referring to people who are just managing it in emails, but I'm sure all of these benefits you're thinking, we have no way of doing that, just managing emails. So comparing year on year is brilliant. Like, what were all the questions we got last year and how many compared to this year? How was our team's performance last year compared to this year? What things did we put in place to then get those improvements? Is it going downwards? Do we need to implement more? This sort of reporting just gives you lots of insight. And the main thing you'll do with this, I mean, as I've put at the bottom here, ultimately you use the reporting to inform your future decisions. I think that pretty much goes with any reporting essentially, but yeah, I thought I'd add it here. And I've also put here, identify which support channels are your most popular. It's good to know what gets the most impact, what people use, what people like. Cool, that is reporting. Let's jump over to the last one that I just wanted to run through, which is the customer portal. So a customer portal, it's really a mutually beneficial system. A customer portal, if you think of someone who doesn't have any of these tools, then it really is just support via email. Someone submits that email, and then from that point, they have no idea what's going on up until someone replies. They're left completely in the dark. This customer portal, the idea is to sort of close that gap of people being left in the dark. So someone will submit a ticket, and they will have a portal that they can log into and see the status of their tickets. They can see if it's open or if it's been closed. Also have a historic record of everything they've asked. And all those great benefits are the exact same for the people in your internal team. You get to see what the status is. You get to see all of their previous questions. Like, is it something that someone else answered 2 months ago and they've forgotten? You can just, redirect them to that ticket. Yeah, so I've also put here, this works very much in the same way as HubSpot's support inbox. So again, anyone who's used HubSpot for support, where you can log in and access and see how your tickets are doing, it's a really similar sort of system. So yeah, great tool. If you're using tickets and all of these sort of things, this is, I don't want to say cherry on the cake again, because I said that for reports, but it's a nice step forward on the side of the person submitting the ticket and on the side of your internal team. And so yeah, a really useful thing to implement once you've got everything else up and running. So why is the customer portal great for colleges? Improve student support by offering ticketing systems for support. The portal ensures transparency and accountability in resolving concerns. I think that's quite a big one. For me personally, if there's a portal that I can log into to see how my ticket is getting along, if people are looking at it, if they're working on it, I don't know, I feel a lot more safe that it will get resolved. And I think, like I put there, the accountability side of this, people have visibility if you're doing your job essentially. That feels like quite a harsh way to put it, but that is it essentially. I mean, granted, you might be really busy with lots of things going on, but that's not the person asking the question's problem. That's the issue of the people on the internal team. And hopefully all of these tools that we've looked at can help improve that. But the bottom line is that if someone's asked a question for the sake of your brand and wanting to do a good job, you really want that answered within a few hours at maximum. So having this is a great level of accountability on both sides and transparency as well. Like I said just a moment ago, historic access. Excuse me 1 second. Quick sip of coffee, keep me going. Historic access, like I said, that's again good on both sides. Obviously, from the side, if you're using tickets, you've got that already. You've got all the historic access, but the student or parent, whoever it may be, does not have that. Maybe through their emails, they can go through and find it, but it's a nice user experience to have a customer portal. So they can log in, they can see what closed tickets existed, they can see what important information they learned in the past. Great resource for them. And finally, as I've sort of alluded to, it's a mutually beneficial feature. Whoever is submitting the support request finds benefit from it. The admissions teams or whoever it may be that's sort of reviewing these queries can also find benefit from it. And you can see it all in one centralized place. So that is customer portal. Like I said, I think it's just once you've got tickets set up and you've got all these different pieces set up, really nice to implement this. And as a whole, I think a lot of these tools, as you will have seen, they sort of work hand in hand in that if you have tickets set up, you can use the customer portal. If you have a chatbot set up, you can link it to your knowledge base. These tools work hand in hand. And if you're going to make the leap and you're going to invest in Service Hub, I've seen a number of people in the past just use tickets, which is great. You can just use tickets. It's a big benefit of just doing it through your emails. It will work and it will help. But why not use all these great features and tools to improve your self-service for people, to make it easier for people to find their questions, to improve the reputation of your brand? So that would be my one key bit of advice. Granted, a lot of these need quite a bit of work to set up and they take a bit of time and planning, especially with the chatbots and whatnot. But it is worth it. If you're going to invest the money and get Service Hub, use everything that you get, because it will help. It will help you internally and it will give a better process, a better experience, should I say, for your prospective students and parents. And that's it. I'll stop talking for a second now. There is a Q&A box down below if anyone wants to ping any questions in there. I have had the chat closed actually, so I'll just open it, see if there's any questions in there. I can't see any right now, but feel free to ping any questions in the Q&A section. We've got a few minutes here where I can answer any questions. If not, feel free to get in touch with me afterwards if you want to discuss anything further. I'll just give it a few minutes for anyone to ask any questions. If there's no questions, I'll just presume I explained everything brilliantly there, and you all love Service Hub, and you're going to get it straight away.
You definitely did, Guy.
Thank you, Amy.
You did. I feel like I learned something new in these hugs as well, honestly.
Glad to hear it. So I don't think there's any questions in the Q&A. So at this point, I will hand over to Amy to run through the resources. But like I said, feel free to get in touch with me. As you see my name, Guy Bloodworth on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect. Happy to take any discussions outside of this. But yeah, I'll hand over to you, Amy.
Yeah, so I've just popped a couple of blogs from HubGem in here. So the first one on digital marketing, because both of the blogs I popped in are focused on colleges, which is obviously where we have been targeted. Of course, this can also be utilised for other education institutions. I've also popped a wee free resource, building effective reports. Obviously, Guy, you touched on that quite a lot as well, because there's so many ways that you can build a report. So having our wee HubGem resource there is always quite helpful. And I've also popped on a wee resource, a HubSpot specific resource as well, just on Service Hub. So pop on and have a look at that. And then if we move forward, Guy, all these resources you'll get obviously in your email tomorrow. I would recommend just all to, subscribe to our marketing and admissions blog, where there is like a number of helpful resources for all education institutions, not just colleges. So yeah, please enjoy your free resources there. And keep an eye out for our upcoming hug sessions in 2025. So this is actually our final one of the year, which is quite sad actually. We have none in December, but obviously, well, other than this one. But yeah, it's a quiet month, so we'll be looking forward to hosting a few next year. But yeah, please do pop on to our YouTube channel where you can find all our previous hugs. We have also recently set up an AI Insights HubGem specific as well course, which with all the new AI insights coming out on HubSpot, it will be good to have a wee look at them. So yeah, pop on, subscribe, and join our HubSpot user group on LinkedIn as well. You can connect with me, Guy, and everybody else at HubGem for lots of HubSpot tips and tricks there, all education-based focused. So thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully we'll speak sometime soon.
Yeah, please do. Bye.
Bye guys.